After failing in the Senate 99-0, President Obama's budget proposal hasn't received a single vote of support in all of Congress, neither the House nor the Senate, neither Republican nor Democrat. The total is 513 to 0, both houses. And of course, get this, it's been 1,113 days since the Democratic-controlled Senate last passed a budget on anything. But with the country's debt continuing to soar and a massive tax hike approaching at the end of the year, I ask, where's the leadership in Washington to put economic growth above party or politics? And someone steps up and says, let's make a deal. Let us have some kind of pro-growth compromise on taxes, spending, and the debt limit. There is nobody more qualified to talk about this who's been in the thick of it for so long. Oklahoma Republican Senator Tom Coburn, author of the new book, The Debt Bomb, A Bold Plan to Stop Washington from Bankrupting America. Senator Coburn, as always, sir, thank you for coming on. I just don't understand how all the Democrats in the Senate can walk away from their own president's budget. I just don't get that.
Well, they walked away from their own budget. They didn't offer one, which tells you they don't want to have any votes on details of budgets because they don't want to have to defend not addressing the real problems that are facing our country. So it's easy for them. They know that budget was a sham. That budget doesn't solve any of our problems, actually makes our problems worse, and they refuse to put a budget on the floor that actually will address it and have the votes.
All right, I hear, Senator, look, we have a lot of guests on this show and on CNBC, investors, businessmen and women, CEOs and whatnot. They're worried about gigantic tax increases, not least of which dividends and capital gains, but a whole gigantic tax hike. They're worried about the debt ceiling. They're worried about a repeat of what happened last summer. Here's the bottom line, Senator Coburn. They're worried about a business hiring freeze, no new jobs, and a possible stock market plunge. My question to you, is it even remotely possible that some actions could be taken before we go down to the wire once again?
Well, I think we'll go down to the wire, but I think there'll actually be a compromise. Congress is demonstrating that it only works on when there's a crisis, which is a shame. People ought to ask what we're doing here. It comes back to something you mentioned with your other guests. Leadership is really important. This country has significant, urgent problems in front of us. The House has done a lot to address that. It has been totally ignored by the Senate. And that's not partisan because Republicans have ignored some of these issues as well in the past, during the Bush administration. So the fact is shouldn't we be addressing the very real problems, saving Medicare, saving Social Security, getting rid of the duplication, waste, and fraud, which is over $300 billion a year, reforming the tax code to have a real stimulus, which is private money having confidence and certainty to invest in our country, and then taking advantage of our natural resources. If we had leadership, we'd be doing all those things.
Senator Coburn, in a hypothetical compromise, is there a specific area where both sides would give up something to make a deal? You know, I lived through the Reagan deals in the early 1980s with Tip O'Neill. I watched Clinton and Gingrich. Is there something that both sides could give up and call it a compromise and maybe get this thing done? Some place where they both give.
Sure, and we did that in the Bowles-Simpson, probably not as well as I would have liked, but we did it to try to get the process moving. And your guest earlier said that it was a mistake that the president didn't embrace it. I agree. It showed a lack of leadership. But what you have to do is you have to reform the tax code. And with that, I remember in the Reagan, which you were a part of, the Reagan tax changes, my taxes the first couple of years went up, but they ultimately went down as incomes rose. So if you reform the tax code, not by raising tax rates, but by lowering tax rates and broadening the base, and if you save Medicare by reforming it, and you save Social Security by reforming it, and if in fact you markedly decrease the wasteful discretionary spending that we have and the duplication, we can strike a balance.
You got $300 billion. You and I just talked about it on the radio. I think it was last weekend. You got at least $300 billion in that area. Wouldn't that be fodder for compromise?
Well, there's $300 billion, one, but you also could get another $300 billion put into our economy Actually, two different ways. One is to develop our own oil and natural gas. That would save us $300 billion. That's $300 billion that would be invested here and not sent overseas to Venezuela and the Middle East. And then if you truly reformed the tax code and made it simple, you could save $300 billion that produces no wealth by what we spend to pay for paying our taxes.
All right. I got to leave it there. Senator Tom Coburn, you're wonderful to give us your time and
Glad
your
to do it,
ideas. My hope springs eternal, sir. Thanks very much. Coming up on Kudlow, a very tragic story. Robert F. Kennedy.